time where you are now, but for me it's good morning. So good morning, everyone, and good afternoon for my fellows participating in this session from Spain. And whenever you are, hope you are having a good time, healthy, safe, vaccinated, hopefully, and really look forward to this session just as we are. I saw many friends in the audience. I'm very happy to see you all here, and I hope you have a good time. My name is Felipe Carpes. I am a professor of biomechanics in Brazil in the Federal University of Pampa. I will tell you a little bit more about this very soon. And today we are here to contribute to the ISBS Mid-Year Symposium 2022 with the support from Delsis, Qualisys, Vicon, and Simimotion. We are very grateful for these companies for being part of the symposium and supporting our activities. And also a special thanks for Tim and Stuart that are helping us handling this session in the backgrounds. Today, we are going to talk about the early insertion of undergraduate students in biomechanics laboratories. I'm pretty sure most of you have some experience related to this, and we will have time to share and to discuss very soon. We have invited speakers here today. Myself and Professor José Ignacio Prego Quesada are sharing the session, but have very special guests that we will introduce you later. First thing, but I saw someone already participating. We have a Mentimeter tool. You can just scan the QR code that you see in your screen, or just go to menti.com and type the code 42289480. Right? And there are questions. There are not many questions, not biomechanics questions, but some questions that can help to better know you. And I will later share with the audience the answers. Okay? So our agenda for today, we have an opening lecture where I will talk about the undergrad research I conduct in our lab, and also Professor Prego Quesada will tell us a little bit about how it works in his group at the University of Valencia in Spain. And then we have 4 invited speakers. They are now PhD researchers or PhD students or master's students, but more importantly, in the past, they were undergrad researchers. I mean, they joined the biomechanics lab during the undergrad studies in physiotherapy and physical education sports. After that, we'll have time for discussions, and your participation will be very important at that time, because we are going to take your questions and discuss with our invited speakers, and also we have some questions that we prepare to guide the discussion. And hopefully we will almost run out of the time in so many discussions and questions and experience, but we are going to end the session by 2 hours. Okay? So I will start. Okay, Jose? Great. So as I already mentioned, I'm talking to you from Uruguaiana. It's a city in the south of Brazil, so it means that we are very in the bottom of the Brazilian map, close to Argentina and Uruguay. At the university, our university was created less than 20 years ago, so it's a pretty young university in Brazil. It was created with the purpose to increase access to higher education in the country. So our university is spread in 10 cities over this region of our state, and we have a campus more dedicated for health sciences here close to Argentina and Uruguay. And really good to show this image, because Jose, you remember when he visited us in the past with a student travel grant from one of our biomechanics societies. and we work together until now. So it's very nice history, but for another day. Here I have some updated pictures of our research group. This one was taken last December, so we were allowed again to do some small meetings due to the pandemic. The pandemic here in Brazil, it's kind of managed now. We have a lot of people getting the vaccine, but we're still very careful about face-to-face activities. For example, lectures is still online at the university. Just some essential classes are face-to-face these days, and we are expecting to return face-to-face fully next April. So hopefully it will work. Okay, so here are some descriptions what I have done in the past. The more important thing for today is that I'm currently supervising 14 undergrad students doing research in our lab. Very challenging, especially during the pandemic time. I started my research as an undergrad in the past, so I really like sports, I really like cycling, despite I was not a former athlete, as many researchers in cycling are these days. But I consider myself very lucky because I was not sure about my undergrad choice when I entered the university. And engaging in research helped me a lot to find my way, to find my path. And then, well, and here I am today, researching not only sports, but most of our research are related to sports biomechanics. And undergrad research was the topic for this conversation today because this is very important. I have the impression that most of you attending this session is quite sure about the undergrad research importance. This is because we consider important. So every time we are having some opportunity to talk about this, we want to participate. But more and more people have to participate in these discussions because there's so many scientific evidence actually showing that the undergrad research helps not only on education, but also to develop the professional, the person himself, including questions like equity and diversity as well. It's also important because sometimes lectures are in a very, how can I say, closed format. I mean, the students go to the room and just listen to the professor. Sometimes you teach, I don't know, 100 people during your course, and you don't have close contact with the students. And this opportunity of undergrad research helps you to have a better idea about what the university is and how the opportunities that the university can do for you. And it helps you to achieve better grades if you want. Right? Helps the students' performance, but also, in my opinion here, and supported by some evidence, support a better formation of the future professionals that will be in our society. It's not just about preparing students to enter a PhD program in the future, for example. And it is important because the engagement of these students with undergrad research, because we all know that research takes time, okay, and there's a lot of stress, time pressure and publications, and you have to do additional work. It's stressful, okay? It's additional work. And additional work, it's stressful. And sometimes the interest of the students start in the classroom. Just a single class can be a life change, let's say, for a student, as it was for me in the past. I had the biomechanics class and said, that's it. This is what I want to go deep, right? And here we have a teaching method that we developed a couple of years ago. The proposal was created by me and Emmanuel. Emmanuel at that time was an undergrad student here at our university, and we prepared a different way to teach biomechanics that lasts until today. And sometimes from this experience, the students learn about the possibilities of joining the biomechanics lab. Of course, funding is important. In our case, we are a low-income region of the country, so many students will also benefit if they have a scholarship. It's important to mention because I don't know if this information is available for everyone, but higher education in public university in Brazil are for free, so there is no tuition, including students non-Brazilians. And we also have some opportunities for scholarships that can help to support the development of the students. When they enter the undergrad research, when they start to participate in research in our lab, they will have the main experience, the experience that are common for research. I mean, they will have a daily routine. They have to include sometimes to go to our laboratory. This video, it's not a fancy video, it was just a mobile phone video, but it's when we were preparing our lab for a National Biomechanics Day a couple of years ago. So students will have to create this culture of going to the research lab to work with other people. And this can be quite a challenge for the students that are in the first or second year of university. And they will have contact with all that fancy biomechanics stuff that we saw out there. Many equipment and data, images, biological signals. It will be very challenging. And students will be willing to hands-on. They don't want to enter the lab, the group, just to read papers. And this is challenge for supervisors, because we have to find a balance between promoting activities that can help them to develop themselves and learn more about the topics of biomechanics, but also kind of jump some steps and also go for practical activities and do some data collection, all involving a health environment. I mean, I am very worried about creating a good environment for the students. They feel safe, they can say what they want, they think, they can explain things the way they can, and we help, but always with a polite way, with a lot of education, patient, and trying to develop them as a whole person, not only a machine of doing research. They will have to select some topics of research. This is important because they don't know a lot about biomechanics. So among the topics you have, we have to kind of know the student and pick some of the characteristics of this student to kind of guide the students to one topic of research. And doesn't matter if the topic changes, but for a start it's very important, because you used to say that there is a popular saying in Brazil that we say the first impression is that the last. I mean, the first impression that the student will have about biomechanics sometimes is the impression that we will take for their life. So if the first impression is of something that he doesn't like or don't feel comfortable, not going to work. We also involve students in outreach and also in classes of biomechanics that are going on in the lab. A great option for including these undergrad students in outreach is promoting National Biomechanics Day events. It's also very important to evaluate these students and to provide feedback. We work with regular meetings with the supervisors, regular meeting with co-supervisors, because I try to organize the group hierarchy with undergrad students in touch with master and PhD students. And we also do at least one time per year a SWOT analysis, aiming to some strategic planning and assessment of our activities. All clear, all for everyone. Doesn't matter if the students just joined the lab, like first month, or if they are in the lab for 8 or 9 years. They will participate all in the same activities. And this all to try to keep a happy group working with biomechanics and learning that they can start very early in research and have good experience that will benefit their professional life and also the personal life, because we create connections, make new friends, and learn more about the real world out there. Okay, so that's my part, Jose. Now I invite you to continue.
Thank you, Felipe, for your great presentation. Okay. Wait a moment. Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you, Felipe, for your great presentation. And thanks to the ISBS for this great symposium and opportunity. I hope all this session will be interesting for the attenders. I'm Priego Quesada, researcher in the research group of sports biomechanics and professor in the University of Valencia. Now, we are in Valencia at east of Spain, very beautiful city. If it is for you, I think that is, I hope that in the future you can see our city, and with a great weather that is always very good, it's very nice. And we are in the University of Valencia and in the Faculty of Physical Activity and Sports. As I said, I'm a member of the research group in sports biomechanics. If you are interested in your group, in this slide is our social media and website. We try always to update the social media with our investigations, publications, news, etc. Currently, we are a group composed by different professors, all of them of the University of Valencia, except my colleague Marina Gil Calvo, who is professor in the University of Zaragoza. Alberto Encarnacion is also attending this session. Thank you, Alberto. And he's going to present another session in 4 hours, more or less. It's interesting for you. Alberto is a great researcher. And we are a group composed by other collaborators and students. In this slide, in blue, are the current PhD students that are more or less in full time in our group. Joaquin is going now to present his experience. However, there are more students, other PhD students, but they come from the professional field and try to do their PhD at the same time that they work. There are different profiles, right? Our faculty is in 2 cities, Valencia and Ontinyent. Ontinyent is the city that is 1 hour of distance of Valencia, and for this reason, we have 2 biomechanics laboratories. As you can see in this image, one laboratory that is very recent, I think that has 5 years old, it's very new, and the other is older, like more or less, I think that more older than the University of Felipe. As any biomechanics laboratory, our requirement is related with motion analysis, plantar pressure, or accelerometry. However, as I'm going to show you, we also work in thermoregulatory studies, and for this reason, we have equipment related with analysis of skin temperature and other physiological parameters. Our main research topics, firstly, is sports biomechanics assessments, and our group is very focused in cycling and running. They are our main sports to assess and to investigate. We also work with companies in the assessment of sports garments. For the reason, we have different publications and PhDs about compressive garments. And in the same line, another main topic is about equipment, especially insoles and footwear. And finally, another of our research topics that I work a lot in them is about the application of infrared thermography in sports science, assessing its applications in different sports and its specific methodology to our field. How do students start in our group? Although we ask for participants in social network, and it might be the first contact with our group as a subject of experiment, the reality is that in the same way as Felipe said, the first important contact is in the biomechanics subject, that is in the 3rd year of the degree. This subject has theoretical classes of 70 students, but the right moment always are in practical lessons that are of 20 students. is with the moment that we can interact with the students and we can see how some of them are interested in sports biomechanics, and we try to attract them to the fore, right? Try to attract them to our group. The second big step is the final degree project, the final bachelor thesis. And it's where they really start to be in the biomechanics group, researching, starting to do experiments, and living a biomechanics laboratory. Of course, if they like it, they keep going with us through the master degree and the doctoral thesis. Most of our studies come from two different programs of the Master of PhD. One is the sports science, and the another is from physiology. Finally, we also try to obtain funds, as Felipe said, to pay contracts for the PhD students that some of them that they don't have scholarships, and we try to find this private money to do research and to try to obtain funds for this kind of students. Here you can see images of research studies that are beginning in these weeks. These images are from some days ago, in which undergraduate students are involved. This image is from Ontinyent, another different study, but undergraduate students are working in this project. And also this project is interesting because undergraduate, master, and PhD students are involved. And this way, as Felipe commented, to interact between different levels of students is really great for them, because they are working with people that some years ago, a little time ago, they were in the same position, and they understand completely their feelings and everything, and the feeling sometimes to don't understand anything, or they're afraid to the first contact to the laboratory, and they are a good help to start in the group. Well, thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions at the end of the session, I will answer them without any problem. I think that now I can present our first speaker, that is Emmanuel Sosa da Rocha. Manuel, that is very interesting. Well, Emmanuel is going to present himself, but it's very interesting because Emmanuel is now a professor, and he is going to connect his life, how undergraduate experience modeled the way that now is a professor.
Thank you, Jose. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, International Society of Sports Biomechanics. So I will talk about my undergraduate research, my experience in the undergraduate research. Specifically, I will talk about how my experience in undergraduate research define who I am today. So who I am? My name is Emmanuel. I'm Brazilian. I'm physical therapist. I have master in physical education, and I have a PhD in human movement science. Actually, I'm postdoctoral students with Professor Karps, and I'm professor. And my research interests are in neuromechanics of the lower limb. And here's my son, Arthur. Here's my back experience. So my trajectory starts in 2009 when I started a physical therapy course. And this year I have classes with Professor Felipe Karps. In these biomechanical classes, he talked about cinematics of the volleyball. And I said for me, oh, it's very nice. I would like to do this. I need to do something like this. So in 2010, we start to work together, and I knew that I wanna he studied cinematic of the human movement. And Professor Philip Carpes has a scholarship for me in a project with cinematic of the gate with obstacle in odors. So this was my first project in biomechanics. In 2010, I have my first Congress presentations when I present 2 posters during the Brazilian Congress of Biomechanics, and was a very good experience for me in my first years as an undergraduate research. And 2011, more presentations, and I meet Professor Darren Stefanishin during the second symposium of applied neuromechanics, and he is in this picture here, Professor Darren. And the next year, in 2012, I awarded a grant of the International Society of Biomechanics, and I spent more than 2 months with Professor Stefanish's group studying running biomechanics. So I had an international experience during my undergraduate research. And 2012, I met the University of Calgary, and I also say that it wasn't just about papers, because in the international experience, I met other biomechanics scientists, and I spent my time in one of the best laboratories in sports biomechanics of the world. We published here a paper during this experience. This paper was published in Journal of Sports Science about the effects of the cold water immersion on lower extremity joint biomechanics during running. In this paper, we select some runners and we evaluate the running and before and after the cold water immersion, like this video here. They stayed in a cold water with 11 degrees. And we suggest in this paper that cryotherapy can be used for exercise interventions in athletes without increasing the joint loading on the lower extremity during running, despite the alterations in the running movement patterns as a result of the effects of cold water immersion. And these alterations were not indicative of the typical biomechanics patterns associated with the running injuries. But how I'll say, it wasn't just about papers. And here it's a experience that I have here. This guy's me trying to playing Rocky with this poor balance here. Now it's my turn. Me, here's Professor Darren Stefanishin. And oops, yeah, sorry, I'm Brazilian. So next year, back Brazil in 2013, my last year as undergraduate study. My final paper, my final work in the course was about the influence of running distance on plantar pressure. And this was the best paper presentation during the 4th symposium of neuromechanics. In this paper, our main result was that the runners that run 10 kilometers present higher plantar pressure post-running in the forefoot region. And we did not find this difference in runners that run 21 kilometers. So 2014, I start my master's in the Federal University the Federal University of Santa Maria in Brazil, that it was a free course, and I with a scholarship, and because my experience during the undergraduate, that was very good. This allowed that I start my master's studies with 7 published or accepted papers, what was amazing for my experience during the master. And in 2016, I started my PG. My PG was about the centric exercise after equidistant rupture. Look, that my master was about cinematic of the walking exercise in older people. And now my PhD was about the eccentric exercise after equidistant rupture. But now I'm teaching, I'm professor, and my experience in the undergraduate research in biomechanics define who I am today. Because I'm professor, I'm biomechanical professor in physical therapy and physical education courses, and I'm now mentoring students in sports biomechanics and clinical biomechanics. Here are some examples from my experience as a mentor. I'm supervising students during evaluations and physical therapy care during running races, and my projects are about functional adaptations in recreational and professional runners, and also the impact of the coronavirus in the running training. So this was my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Emmanuel, and I have to say that as a former supervisor, very proud of your presentation, all the path you have built over the years, and the partnership that we still keep going on now, creating connection between our universities. So our next invited speaker is Inaê de Oliveira Marcelo, and welcome, Inaê. Inaê is going to present herself for all of you guys, and make sure you take notes for our discussion later.
Hello, thank you, Felipe. Hello, everyone. My name is Inaê. I'm going to talk about my experience in undergrad research, and I'm going to talk about my research that was in knee injury prevention. So first, I'm going to introduce myself. I am Inaê, as I said before. I am graduated in physiotherapy, class of 2021. So last year, I graduated in physical therapy in the Federal University of Pampa. As Felipe and Emmanuel said, it's a free university, and I studied there for 5 years with no costs. Nowadays, I am a master's student in physiological science, also in the same university where I graduated. I started last year, and I have 2 years to complete from 2021. I'm going to talk about the city where I was born. I was born in Porto Alegre, that is this city right here. And when I was applying to college, I had to choose an university to go, and 400 miles later, I ended up in Uruguaiana, as Felipe said. So if you take a look, it's very far from the city where I was born, and my family is all in Porto Alegre, and I came here to Uruguaiana, this is a small city next to Argentina, to study. And I'm here since 2016, so it's been a long time. Since the beginning of my graduation, I was involved in research. I started doing research in the physiology research group that was advised by Professor Pamela, and I had the opportunity to participate of a lot of projects. In fact, there is some publications that I did with this research group, and we did a lot of research in physiology teaching. So here I have some, just like the biomechanics Olympic Games, as Felipe said, we did a physiology puzzle about the membrane potential. And here we have the article if you want to take a look later. I also had scholarships since the beginning of my graduations. Here we have the two programs that I had scholarships for this project. But how I ended up in biomechanics. In 2017, we had a congress in Brazilian biomechanics, and I just had the biomechanical classes, and I had interest in about learning a little bit more. Then I went to this congress, and since then I am a part of the neuromechanics research group. It was, like I said, it was love for the first time. I saw biomechanics, and then I talked to Felipe for joining the group, the research group. And since 2018 until now, I am part of our research group. Then we started doing some project about physical training in physical testing program for amateur athletes. So we did a lot of evaluations and testing on amateur cycling, running athletes, futsal athletes, and we still have this program, but now we are not doing these evaluations because of the pandemic. But this project is still going on, and we are looking forward to get more amateur athletes to evaluate. So now I'm going to talk about a little bit about the project that I'm still participating, and that's the project that lead us to the International Society Biomechanics Congress in 2019 in Calgary. And it's a project that we study the acute and chronic neuromechanic adaptations to maximal strength and powers of the lower limbs. Here I show some pictures of us in the ISB Congress and a few presentations that I had. One was about the Olympic Games, and the other one was about this research that I'm going to talk a little bit. And during that time, I had to elaborate my final program, my final paper in college, and then I started thinking about the interactions between time of the day and physical performance in different exercises. And this was one of the presentations I had also in the ISP Congress, and in other congress where I won also the best presentation, the oral presentation. So this is my the theme of my final paper. We were looking for understanding if leg asymmetries interact with time of the day in clinical tests that screen knee injury risk factors. So in general, we evaluated some clinical tests, just as lung tests, joint position sense, drop landing, single leg squat, and isometric strafe. We evaluated that, and we had our main result was that the time of the day don't interact with leg asymmetries assessed by these clinical tests. And that means the practical application of our study is that this clinical test can be performed at any time of the day. It doesn't matter if you are going to evaluate this in the morning or in the evening, it's not going to interfere your result. So this is the main application of my final paper. And that led us to my master research that we are still elaborating. This is also about knee injury risk, and we are going to research about the relationship between performance in functional tests and biomechanic injury risk factors in soccer and futsal athletes. Our hypothesis is that the ability of functional tests to predict biomechanics characteristics in tasks that have risk of ACL injury is different between the preferred leg and the contralateral leg in soccer and futsal players. And the aim of our study is going to be determine the ability of functional tests to predict biomechanics characteristics associated with risk of knee injury in soccer and futsal athletes, and whether this ability is influenced by foot preference for kicking. We also going to analyze some functional tests, but this time we are going to do a 3D kinematics. I'm sorry, I missed this information in my final paper. I used 2D kinematics, and now we are going to use 3D. And the athletes are going to perform a few functional tests, such as SEBT, drop jump, drop landing, lung again, hope tests, isometric straight, forward jumps, and we are going to analyze if this performance in these characteristics are associated with knee injury risks. So the main results, we still don't have it, but I hope we can meet again sometime to for me to share these results when our research is ready. And I want to say that my this possibility to have undergrad research was the master choice for me to do the master's right now. And I think it's very important because you can learn, and you can learn how to apply biomechanics in your job as a physical therapist. Being an undergrad student, I could learn a lot more than just the college content, and I think it's a very very good experience. And this is our group, as Felipe said, and thank you so much. If you have any questions, I'm glad to answer.
Thank you very much, Inae. Please remember that if you have questions, take notes to do at the end of the session. It's a pleasure for me to present our next speaker, Milena, from the Federal University of Pampa, who is going to tell us about her experience. And I know that she is going to give very interesting advice for the students that are beginners. Thank you, Milena.
Okay, thank you for presenting me. I'm happy to be here with you guys, and I believe it's okay, my screen. Can someone?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, thank you. So, I will talk about my experiences in undergraduate research. My name is Milena Guiar dos Santos. And first, I will introduce myself to you guys. And so, who am I? My name is Milena. As I said, I'm 23 years old. I'm now a master's student in physiology at the Federal University of Pampa, located at Uruguaiana, Rio Grande do Sul, Brazil, here in the south of Brazil. I'm also a colleague of Inae, and I was colleague of hers at the physiotherapy course and now at the master's too. So I started my university at 17 years old, my physiotherapy course at 2016. and I graduated last year at the Federal University of Pampa. Like Inae, I'm far from my family home, which is 900 kilometers from my city. And now I'm a master's student in physiological sciences at the Multi-Center Graduate Program in Physiological Sciences, which is the PPG-MCF. And I'm also funded by CAPES Brazil, so I receive a scholarship. And I'm also an associated researcher at the Applied Neuromechanics Research Group. So it all started with my biomechanics classes, where I met Professor Felipe Carpes in 2016. So here my presentation, I will leave some tips to you as I'm talking with you. And the first tip that I want to give you is that pay attention to what classes and professors you enjoy, what you like, because you can find great opportunities to join some research group or to be a volunteer. So as I talked to Felipe, I tried to find my first email. It was like a big email that I sent to Felipe, and I was very nervous and shy. And oh, I was thinking, what will he say to me? And here I am. So I became first a volunteer in the laboratory of neuromechanics. And the second tip is don't be afraid to ask questions and let your curiosity guide you, because it will lead you to some amazing experiences, such be an undergrad student at a research lab. So when I started as a volunteer, I participated at the outreach program to evaluate amateur athletes. It's the PACTO. And then at 2017, I started to receive a scholarship, and I received scholarship from different foundings from 2017 till 2021. And I'm also founded here in the master's program. So at the lab, I have the opportunity to meet new people from different levels at university. So I had colleagues from my undergrad physiotherapy course, and I also had master's and PhD students with me. So it's nice to share some knowledge with them. And I could also discover projects that were being developed by them and discover what I like to do in biomechanics. I also participated at some events and present abstracts. So here in the left, you can see one of my first presentations. And in the right, you can see the ISB Congress that I participated, and I also present some research. So this is a very good experience to participate and to do. I also needed to learn how to use some equipment of the laboratory, not all the equipment, because it's a lot of things that we have in the laboratory. And also scientific writing, that it's very important, and it's something that you need to practice. You cannot run from it. You need to practice every day, and you need to read articles and practice how to write, and it's a never-ending task. So here in Brazil, we have to do a final work, a final project, which is called the TCC, which means completion of coursework. So as I was already involved in the laboratory, and I already knew what we were doing, I came with an idea from the first event that I went in 2017, which was the Brazilian Congress of Biomechanics. And the first idea was something like, does music affect us during the gait, and how does it work? And when I came to Felipe with this idea, two things happened. So Felipe needed to help me and guide me as my advisor of how to do that. And I needed to to know that a research question needs a lot of research before this question, and we need to have an hypothesis and a lot of things we need to do to make this methodology to really start the experiment. It's not just oh, I have a question and then start the experiment, and I was lost. and I needed someone guided me. So Felipe guided me in this idea. And the second thing we can note here that it was my first research question. So it's very cool that I went to an event and this was my first question, which turned to this one, which was my question from my final project. And the objective on this project was determine whether listening to preferred music during indoor endurance exercise influences rating of perceived effort, neuromuscular and cognitive responses in healthy individuals. So I used the cycling exercise as an endurance exercise. And then the challenge begins. So we need to do a lot of things to do some research, the never-ending literature review, because we need to always research and search for articles in English using PubMed, Cielo, Scholar Google, and Pedro too. You need to use these databases to search for the information. I also needed to recruit participants and learn how to use the equipment and manage the time between my classes, because I was doing my physiotherapy course and my experiment to collect the data. I also needed to do the data processing and organize data, process the raw data, learned how to use some software such as MATLAB, which was really frightening at the beginning and really challenging for me. And also the statistical analysis, and made some figures, tables, and graphs, and writing. Scientific writing, as I said, it's practice. And in English, which is not my first language because I speak Portuguese, but I wanted to publish this article in English and I wanted to be international. So here are some of the equipment that I needed to use to evaluate my participants at my project. So I used the load Excalibur, which is a cycloergometer. And I needed to use the software binary axon to evaluate the muscular activation. So I needed to use the EMG sensors, which is the electromyography. I also used Polar, the heart monitor. And I used the Borg scale, which is the rating of perceived exertion scale. And also the PsychoPy software to do some cognitive tests, such as reaction time, stroke test. And I also used my computer to do some memory tests, such as work memory and short-term memory. So it was a lot of variables that I need to evaluate during this project. And also I have the challenge to process this data and to do the statistical analysis. I used the GraphPriz software. And I also used the MATLAB, and now I'm learning Python. So I think Python is more friendly. I really like Python more than MATLAB. So if you want to discuss about that, we can discuss about that too, because I'm a beginner at this. And the most important thing was people that helped me, because we cannot do research alone. So it's very good to have a lot of colleagues from different levels, such as masters, PhD, undergrad, and of course my advisor, Felipe, and all these people working together. I can talk to them some doubts that I have during this process, and they were there helping me, and also I was helping them too with their own projects. So it was very good experience. And now we have my final project. We can find that at the library of my university, Unipampa. And the result of this is that listening to preferred music during indoor cycling elicits a higher internal load accompanied by higher heart rate, but does not affect the neuromuscular and cognitive responses to the exercise. So these strategies as music to increase this internal load during exercise can be useful for indoor exercise programs performed at home, for example, such as when during this pandemic of COVID-19, we needed to do our exercise at home. So music can be a great source of increasing this internal load. And you can also find my article published. You can find at the ResearchGate. You can search for me or for Felipe, or you can search it in the Brazilian Journal of Motor Behavior too. And now I have a new challenge as a graduate student. So, you know, it's already a challenge when you have a lot of folders just like that. And as I said, writing is practice. So it's good to have a lot of folders of your project, because you're practicing your writing and you are improving your knowledge, and it's great for you. So in this project, I continue interested in understand the acute adaptations to the exercise in the context of training, but also rehabilitation, and considering aspects of neural control of movement. So what is the effect of delayed muscle onset soreness on balance control in response to postural disturbance is the main question that is involved in my master's degree. And I'm very happy to show that for you. And I don't have any results yet, but I will start collecting this year. I hope so. And I hope to present to you in some next opportunity if you can. And now some take-home messages. So as an undergraduate student, we should let curiosity be our best friend. We can learn a lot from the opportunities that appear, or we can create them too, such as me. They sent an email, so you can create this opportunity, we can create this experience. And even if the research and academic area isn't your first idea for future, this experience can help you in the work field too, as knowledge is never a waste of time. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you guys for listening to me. And this is my email. You can contact me there. We can share some knowledge, and you can ask me something about the undergrad experience. I will be very happy to answer all of you. And you can also find me on Instagram and send me a DM. I'll be very happy to help you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Milena, for your presentation. We are now moving to the last presentation before our discussion, and our invited speaker now is Joaquin Marzano. Joaquin is another stage of the scientific career, and will tell us a little bit about how the undergrad experience shaped what he is doing now and planning for the future. Welcome, Joaquin.
Okay, thank you very much, Felipe, for the presentation. I will share my screen. Let me check if everything works okay. Do you hear me and you are able to?
Yes.
The screen?
Sound is good, and the screen is okay as well.
Okay, so we start. As I said, thank you very much, Felipe. First of all, I would like to thank the International Society of Biomechanics in Sports and our mentor, Dr. Priyo Quesada and Dr. Carpes, for giving me the opportunity to be part of this symposium and share somehow my experience. No? As they told, my name is Joaquin Marzano Felizati, and I have done my studies in Universidad de Valencia here in Spain. I have a degree in physical activity and sports science, and a master's degree in research and intervention in physical activity and sports science. This year, I'm starting my PhD program, also related to physical activity and sports. It is also important to mention that I'm a national volley coach because I'm always trying to connect research with my sport, which is volleyball. So to put you all into context, I have been very connected to sports since I was a child. I had the opportunity to go through national and international experience in different sports. And in the last 10 years, I have been very connected to volleyball, first as a player, and then, as I told, as a coach. But I have always wanted to go beyond this experience, trying to deepen in the understanding of physical activity and sports science. And that is why I decided to study the degree in physical activity and sports science here in Valencia. Research was not in my main plans when I first started, but during the degree, different experience that I had made me gradually change my point of view. In Valencia, the degree is divided in a 4-year course, and in each of the years, there is a subject related to research. For example, in the first year, we have statistics. Then in the second year, we have introduction to research. In the third year, we have biomechanics of physical activity, where we have also practical lessons that were given by Dr. Priego Quesada. And in the final 4th year, where we prepare and present our final project. On the 3rd year, it was when I first said, this is what I like, this is what I want to do. And I changed my focus, seeing biomechanic research as the main option. Then in the 4th year, the final project was the opportunity to start working together with Priego Quesada and the Biomechanic Research Group here in Valencia. For this degree final project, we decided to do an intervention in a high-performance junior volleyball center where we identify a problem with training overload associated with injuries. So we choose to create a system to monitor and control the training load. This project was entitled Monitor and Control of Training Load in Volleyball through Accelerometry, Effort Perception, and Heart Rate, a practical proposal. In this intervention, we were able to quantify the external and internal load per exercise, session, and its distribution over the week. The technology that we applied were inertial movement units and polar sensors. To continue with, the following year, I did my master's degree in research and intervention in physical activity and sports science, also in Valencia, where I had the opportunity to be in contact and learn from professors of different research groups and specialties. These contacts ended with the co-supervision of my master project by the creation of a multidisciplinary group where biomechanics and sport performance related to technical tactical analysis collaborated. Priego Quesada was the person in connection with the biomechanic research group, and Dr. Guzmán Luján was the person expert in scouting and training, technical tactical performance studies. So the final project was entitled Systematic Review and Technical Tactical Analysis of Women's Volleyball according to age category, level, and results of the game. It is important to note that the decisions taken in this project were also influenced by the COVID situation, where groups intervention were not allowed. To continue with this year, we're going to start with my PhD project, whose main aim is to integrate technical tactical analysis and biomechanical variables of the game. The title of our project is Volleyball Multifactorial Analysis for Performance Improvement, Training Process, and Talent Detection. We are also assessing the possibility of integrating the control of psychological variables associated with sport performance into the project. To carry out this project, we will continue with the co-supervision of Dr. Priego Quesada and Dr. Guzmán Luján, and we will incorporate the collaboration of Dr. Soria Olivas, Director of the Intelligent Data Analysis Laboratory, IDAL, here in Universidad de Valencia, Spain. They are specialists in data processing, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and programming. Furthermore, I would like to emphasize on some of the points that made me take the decision to focus on biomechanics research. First, the possibility of applying new technology in sports performance. As I've told some of the professors and subjects during the degree, put us in contact with technology applied to sport performance, and this was one of the aspects that I enjoyed the most. That is why I decided to try to continue with my studies with the aim of learning how technology works and how it's applied to sport performance. Another point was the idea of transferring university knowledge to the daily sport context. Also, the support received by Dr. Priego Quesada and the research group of sport biomechanics that through different courses, lectures, supported me and introduced me gradually to the field. Finally, another important point was the possibility of continuing my studies through predoctoral contracts and grants associated with projects. So the main positive effects of an early insertion in biomechanics laboratories, from my point of view, is experience. You gain experience by collaborating in different projects. You also receive expert guidance during the teaching learning process, being able to apply theory into practice. You are also able to work in multidisciplinary teamworks. And you also start to introduce yourself to the preparing paper process, publications, and attending to Congress and giving your first lectures. So finally, I would like to end my presentation with some takeaway ideas. First, I understand early insertion in research group as an opportunity to deepen knowledge with expert guidance. Second, take the advantage of this experience to develop personally and professionally. The third idea is to use collaboration in research groups as a chance for better theoretical practical assimilation. And finally, the fourth point important for me is be open-minded to collaborate with other research groups to promote multidisciplinary teamwork and create beneficial networking. So thank you all for your attention, and I look forward to answer if there's any question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joaquin, for the great presentation. Well, all great presentations and great ideas and great messages, at least in my opinion. I hope you share some similar opinion. So now I just want to show you some of the answers we have in the Mentimeter screen. And there are at least one question that I know already came through Mentimeter. So here we can see we are here. There's a lot of people in the room, but some of them were able to answer the question. So most of us are professors, but there are also graduate students enrolled in this session. And we still have some countries, some continents, sorry, not represented here, as most of people is from Europe. And oh, okay, someone came here, very nice. And this is one challenge that all the societies are fighting these days, to increase the representative from different places and provide not yet equity, because there's a lot of it's a long path to achieve what we want for the future, but hopefully we'll get this soon. Next question was if you are involved with undergrad research at any point and at any level. And most of people, yes, we are enrolled in undergrad research, and there are people willing to do very soon. That's really nice. Well, I really love undergrad research, so I have a bias in my speech. Which sports do you like most? Cycling. That's a great choice, right? So cycling and also gymnastics, at least it's showing for me here as the more popular sports. If the institutions are supporting undergrad research, And we made this question for you because I mentioned in my presentation, and also Jose mentioned, that we try to get funding not only for research but also to support undergrad students with scholarships, right? And it's really good to see that most of the students are supporting undergrad research. For those involved with undergrad research, question was about how good was the experience. Yeah, and well, the experience was on average 7.5 out of 10. So you can see the histogram here, and we are biomechanics guys, so I think we are pretty clear about the graph, right? And that's a good outcome, right? So in general, the experience was nice. And now, Jose, we have time for our questions from the audience. You can feel free to send questions using the chat box. And if you want to send the questions using the Mentimeter, you can do as well. So I will leave to you, Jose, to do this first question that we received for someone from our audience.
Okay, thank you, Felipe. I'm going to waiting for the questions for our attenders. I'm going to ask for any of the speakers. I think that the four can ask, can reply. I will ask you if you think that the sooner you start to be part of a research group, the better, or if it is more positive after a few years of at the university that the students are a little more mature and not 18 years old, if it is better to introduce in the research group a little after 2 or 3 years of the university, or just in the beginning. What do you think?
We have some volunteer to start.
Emmanuel.
Okay. No, if you want, I can start to break the ice, something like that. Well, in my opinion, it's a really good question. I think that it's important to be gradually. So understanding this as a process, it's also true that the sooner you begin, the more time you have for this process to take place. Another important thing that we have to take into account that normally when you start a degree, you don't have enough experience to really know what you like, or if you're interested in research. So sometimes you can be a little bit scary of going with this process. So I think that the two main things we have to have in account is that has to be a gradual process, and it's always good to start the sooner, in my opinion. No, the experience has to be a positive experience, a good experience. All of the speakers, all of us spoke about good experience to start and to be connected with the groups. So I think those are the two main things that are important, in my opinion. Thanks.
I think when you start earlier is better because you don't need to running to finish. You can read more, you can think about and learning about many themes in the biomechanics.
I agree with both, and I think that earlier is better too, because as I said, I had my question at 2017 and I published. It was accepted in the earlier 2021, my article, and it was my project. And I had the time to research and do the experiment and enjoying the activities of the lab. I didn't have to rush things. And something that we need to know is that we will be lost. You are going to be lost, and it's normal. I was lost too. And now as a master's, and when I have the undergrads with me, I need to guide them too, because I was there once. So yes, you will be lost, but I think earlier it's better. And gradually, as Joaquin said, it's good too.
Well, thank you very much.
I want to do a comment on your question, Jose, because like from the other side of the table as supervisors that we are, and we were undergrad students in the past as well, and I will ask you later about your undergrad research as well. And I think it's important to, well, I think it's good to start early, and I will not say as soon as possible, because sometimes students need to take some basic courses before. For example, in my case, I like to have students that went to the biomechanics course, and physiotherapy is on the second semester of the course, first year students, okay? But especially because there are a lot of colleagues that are professors here, at least based in the Mentimeter feedback, I think we have to create the environment. I mean, the student, as Milena said earlier, it came to the university sometimes very young and with few experiences about science, right? It's very good what we do these days with the National Biomechanics Day and other activities like open houses, open labs. My first experience with this open house for research was in Calgary, and I was there during my part of my PhD. And this day I came to Brazil as well. In the university I was doing my PhD, promoted by Professor Antonio Carlos Stringini Guimarães in the past. So we need to create these opportunities. So if you want to have undergrad students join our lab, we have to show our lab, okay? And you have to show what they will do in the lab, and more importantly, what we expected from them as part of the lab. Because if an undergrad student that just started the university studies came to a research lab and see someone like working on very big amount of data and very complex data, and like Milena told before in IA as well, 2D, 3D kinematics, MATLAB, Python, and other tools that some of us use, they will get afraid. They will get worried about the expectations. So let's create a fluxogram from where the student starts and where we want them to come. It's very nice to see like Emmanuel with papers published, Milena in IA also has her paper submitted, but this is not what we expected for the undergrad research. It's great, right? It's great, but it's not what we expected, because sometimes we can just by not explaining, not making sure what we expect for the students, we can lose great minds, because they just can see, no, I'm not good enough to do that, and I'll not be able to follow that people. It's too much for me. And so have to create this environment for the students, and showing the lab and showing what we do in science is very good. Very necessary, I say.
Yeah, I love the key points of Joaquin and Emmanuel. That was early but progressive.
Yeah, that's good. So are we good to go with the questions from the audience now? The chat's pretty quiet. I hope everyone is still there. We have bad English, I know, but take it easy with us, okay? So first question here is, what was the most important thing you learned during your undergrad research experience? Very good question, huh? A tough question, actually. So who wants to share first?
Okay, I can first.
Good, thank you, man.
I think the most important thing is work in a team, work group, because when you are in a group, a research group, you learn to work with different people, with different levels, and it's very important. But also things like how to read a scientific paper, how to lead critically a scientific paper, and about statistics, and I think is the most important things here. Oh, do you agree with me? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the answers.
Okay.
Of the other.
I can tell something too. So I don't know if I can say the most, because a lot of things
Yeah, but try to
important.
find the most
Okay.
important one. The most important.
I think the connection between people, like I when we went to congresses and we talk with people from other countries sometimes, or other places, other cities, and we share this knowledge as an undergrad and other levels. I like this change of knowledge, and of course reading articles, and this is common to us, and sometimes for other students it's not, like reading articles and know how to read and know how to search for this. It's very important, not only on the research area but to the work field too, because we need to work with based on evidence, so it's very important.
Okay, if you want to continue, Felipe and Jose, I totally agree with what my colleagues told. The teamwork, as I spoke in my presentation, was very important for me, because we start first working with Jose, and then we did some multidisciplinary work with other groups. So teamwork, also being able to give what you receive. As you spoke in all the presentations, we first started receiving, and as years go by, we are able to give to people that are starting. So I think that's also important. And I also find very interesting how to work in research that is not only applied to research, can be applied to many other contexts or professional places. The importance of knowing how to do correctly things, establishing protocols, a correct methodology, being able to evaluate, all these things start with a good theoretical base. All the things that are important in research can also be transferred in other contexts, professional contexts. So I find very good, very interesting to know how a research works, and the way a research work can be applied to many other contexts. So I think that is also important. Thanks.
Great. Inaya, do you want to share with us your opinion about the most important thing that you learned during your undergrad research?
Yes. I think the most important thing is that you learn to believe yourself and to believe your research, because in my undergrad research I was able to participate of a lot of projects, and then I could learn a lot of equipment, a lot of another methods and protocols, and by that it's like you can motion yourself to do more. You can do more, and it's good because you start to believe that the things you think and the things you are questioning about, they can be answered, and that's the way we search for new researches, and I think that's one of the most important things.
Great. Jose, I think it's fair to hear from you as well. What do you think is the most important thing that you learned during your undergrad research?
During my undergrad research?
Yeah, this is a symposium about the undergrad research. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when I started, The problem is that it was not a final research work that's currently now in our degree. And the funny thing is that I didn't do any research during my undergraduate experience. In mind, I was studying to be a social trainer or a management guy. And when I finished, it was the crisis, the global crisis, and I didn't have a job. And after 3-4 months, I started to work in a scientific research center. And I didn't have any experience as an undergraduate student, but I think that is a really nice way to learn more. I think that the problem sometimes is for professors is that we have a lot of students in our classroom, and it's impossible to do a really good learning process. For example, talking about scientific writing or are really specific things to the students, because we have a lot and it's really difficult to focus in each one. But in a laboratory, it's a better way to take contact with students and to try to improve them. And I think that is the main reason for the undergraduate students need to enter in the research group, because they can improve a lot, because they have a better individualized learning.
Great. Do you want to hear from me as well?
Yeah, of course. Felipe, tell me, what was your experience?
Thank you.
So sorry,
still
because
have
I know, I know your life.
Well,
I didn't ask you.
For my experience was time management. I agree with all the comments made by the panel. The development of technical abilities, it's very important. Connections and teamwork. Learn how to use the scientific method, not only for research but for any other professional activity. To develop confidence, personal confidence, and I agree with all of them. So I will add time management, because I used to I used to do some jokes in the lab with my students about doing physical exercise. Like, have to do physical exercise because it's good, you know. My wife works at the same university, does a lot of research on neuroscience and learning, memory, exercise. So there's a lot of evidence. So I have to do exercise. And I used to say for the younger students in the lab, if you don't have time now to do exercise, well, I'm sorry about your future, because time, it's always something that we are trying to find. So time management, it's very important. And also, taking the comment from Jose, it's important to see that join a PhD program of a master degree in the future has not the mandatory characteristic of being an undergrad research in the past. Okay, it was the case of Jose. Jose was not involved in undergrad research, but entered the academic career later, and now put a lot of value on the development of the students. We have next question on our Mentimeter, and we still have around 20 minutes to go, so we are good with the time. And the question is for all of us. What are your thoughts on whether is the best to giving undergrad students freedom to choose their own projects, or aligning their projects with staff research? Okay, so this is the 1 million question. Who wants to comment?
I can give my opinion, as I started really early on the undergrad research. I think the best way to get the students involved is to let them choose the projects, to let them create the project to be something that the student likes, for him to study what he likes, what she likes. And I think this is the most important thing, because you can get the student more involved, and he can learn a lot of new things, and can teach some new things to the group. And I think this is the best way for, of course, you can align with the other projects, but when it's my own project, I think the student should have freedom to create.
Okay, who is next to talk?
If you
Emmanuel.
want, I can continue,
Okay.
Felipe.
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Okay, I really find it a very interesting question, really, because it happens to me. As I told, I did a very specific project in my undergraduate project that was with volleyball. And it's true that the research group was not focused on team sports. They were mainly focused on what Jose told about cycling, running, but I think that they both have good points and bad points. For the beginning, I think it could be a good idea to listen to what students want to do or propose and guide them. That it was I received from Jose and from the group. Although my project didn't suit exactly what they were working, they say, okay, what you want to do? This is what we have. Let's try this. Let's try that. And that's a way of engaging the students. But on the other hand, it's also true that when you start trying to publish your paper, or it's a little bit more complicated. So as I said before, it's a process. Maybe it's a good idea to hear what students do, or ideas to guide them and try to engage them in that way. And then is what I'm doing now. I'm doing both things. I'm trying to continue with my research, but at the same time, I'm helping in different projects that are on the research group line. So I think it's a very interesting question, and I will hear what you have to say about that. Thanks for the question.
Good, thank you, Joaquin.
I want to say something too about that, and I will give my experience as an undergrad student. So I think it's good to listen to the student and really sit with them and talk and communicate about what the student is thinking and what the advisor is thinking, because we need to align the ideas. So I didn't give any projects to anyone yet, but I hope so in the future. Because when I start and when I came to Felipe with the idea, I remember that I wanted to do a lot of things. I remember that I wanted to do dopamine too, and I had a lot of ideas, and Felipe needed to, Milena, come here, and we need to shape this idea. And I think the both ways is good. You need to hear the student, but you also need to align with what you are doing in the lab, because sometimes the students don't have the I don't know how to say, but the feeling of how this works and what the advisor works too, and what you need to align the ideas. And I think the best way to do it is communicate and talk and really sit and show. So, okay, it's a great idea and we can shape that this way. So you can continue with the first idea, but shape and align the interests. I think it's the best thing to do.
Great comments. What else? Emmanuel, before you start to talk, I don't know if you still want to share, and also Inae, I want to hear from her as well.
Yeah, I agree with them, and I don't have too experience with this, but I already had students that I give total freedom and work it. But also,
So far, so
also,
good. Yeah,
also didn't work it with another one. Today, I
that's
think
life.
better. Sometimes we need to, if you have master students and PhD students, you can align their projects with the undergraduate student. But in my case, I don't have master students, I don't have PhD students, so I only have undergraduate students that you spend little time with me, and we need to plan something that work in their time of the
Yeah,
course.
I see. Well, I remember when I was an undergrad student and I had total freedom with my supervisor, and it was terrible because the first project that I wrote, he never read the, he has not read the project, the paper, right? Because he was aware, because he was so experienced with the students, that just entering the lab and putting down a research project while an undergrad student not knowing about the whole stuff is pretty hard, right? But from a supervisor perspective, a very personal opinion now, I think you have to be very careful, right? Because I consider myself as supervisor as a motivator, right? And I like to do an analogy in my lectures about the traffic lights, traffic signs, and the work of a supervisor. Because Emmanuel, Inae, and Milena that worked in the past with me, I really heard myself saying that we are not here to get a Nobel Prize, right? I just want to make professionals that are able to use science. And if you can contribute, generate good results for the scientific community and helping to advance the knowledge, great, right? So, and today, these days at least in Brazil, I don't know how it is in your country, but it's very, very difficult, and not because of the pandemic. It's very difficult to keep students motivated for research because scientific information is so put in second place right now. It get worse with the pandemic because of the misinformation and fake news and all this stuff. And sometimes you just put science in question, but there is no question about some evidence that science present. So we try to, here at our place, we try to motivate the students. So if a student came to me and said, Felipe, I want to join your group and I want to learn how it works in the lab and develop something, great. First thing, you have to learn what we do. So students join seminars and workshops in our lab to have a general idea, because you know what you do in the lab is totally different of the classroom. The biomechanics that I teach in the classroom is very different, because here we got to other stuff and connect with other areas as well. So after the student have a general idea about what you do as a PI, a principal investigator in your department, in your university, and remember, you have to be willing to have undergrad students in the lab because they want to work with you. They don't want to work with only with the others and don't see you, never. And I went to many places in the world and I saw many places that the students don't see the supervisor. And at least, from my experience, it doesn't work. So you need the face-to-face contact with your supervisor. You don't need to see the supervisor every day. Sometimes get tired and they, how about the project? How about the paper? Can be bad for you. So, but often meetings, they are very important. And if the student came with an idea, let's discuss, let's show, because sometimes the student just don't know that it's already done. Right? So, okay, what you want to do is done. In the case of Milena, and It was the same for INAE and Manuel. Let's discuss an idea. And I just stopped by and said, no, but this is done already. There's a couple of papers published. So the student go home and said, what I do now? Should I just look for papers and try to find something, or should I use my imagination? So there is no rule, right, Jose? There is no checklist, but all started aiming to keep the student motivated. And if not developing the project by themselves, alone, not alone, but you know what I mean, as the principal investigator in the beginning, they will do this at some point. We just have to guide. And of course, the reality is different between places. As Emmanuel mentioned, if you have master and PhD students or postdoctoral fellows, it's easier because there are more people qualified to help supervising. But sometimes you don't have. I remember when I started here in the university, I was alone. So just me and the undergrad students. So you have to be easy with the young guys, in my opinion.
Felipe, I think that it's a good idea to keep going with your idea that the importance of the connection between supervisor and student. And we have a lot of professors as attenders. And I think that maybe they are thinking in one point. You said in your presentation that you have 19 undergraduate students. I don't know, it was 19, 100 or something like
14.
that. But
14 now.
Yeah, but okay. My question is, how do you manage this? How many hours do you work a day?
A few hours. A day, a lot of hours, but with the undergrad students, a few hours, because they are at different stages. I have students that are already developing a personal project, personal investigation for those final research that all of you mentioned. So they are working with a small team, getting co-supervised by master and PhD students. And we have younger students that are at that stage, they have to learn about what we do in the lab. So they are work with the small teams to prepare some seminars, to learn how to manage some equipment. My first purpose is to keep them motivated to stay in the lab. Once they want to stay in the lab, they will know that to stay in the lab, they should be enrolled in a research project. It can be one project proposed by one student, or they can be helping others. So it depends a lot on the student in the end.
Thank you. This is a really good answer. Well, a really good reply to thinking small teams. And I love one point of Emmanuel, that is not all about papers, but all of our speakers talk about scientific writing or about the papers that they submitted. And for many students, there is a scary time when they try to start to writing a paper for the first time. It's a really scary moment. It's a question for our speakers, if you can give your opinion of how to face writing an article in the first time, because we know that this, for some students, is a very difficult moment. Joaquin, do you want to start?
Well, thank you, Jose, for the question. In my experience, it was a really tough moment. Not only writing the paper, but just going through all the process, sending the paper to the different groups and receiving answers. So it took me quite a long to have the first peer review answer and going through this process. So it's not only writing the paper, it's all the process. No, I in my experience, it was really difficult. Sometimes stressed, lot of stress, and sometimes it was difficult. Really, that's the main word. And I think that is also connected to what I spoke about doing my research. No, if I would have been part of a project in the lab, in the research group, all that things would be much faster and much better in my opinion. As I had my own project, my own ideas, that make the process a little bit more complicated. So that's what I think.
Emmanuel?
And then writing, it's like sports, have to practice. As long as you practice more, then you write better. And of course, there are students that came to the lab writing very well. It's very impressive sometimes, but that's not the rule. So let's just keep practicing and take a scientific writing course or something like that. You have a lot. And also discuss a lot the idea with the student, because sometimes it's very clear in our mind as supervisors, but it's not clear as we think it is in the student's mind. So let's keep discussing. Jose, we have to finish. It goes very fast, just 2 hours actually. Final remarks, final messages, 30 seconds for each one.
Well, if I start, if you want, get the opportunity, enjoy the process, enjoy the experience, and go for it. That is my message. Thanks.
Emmanuel.
Okay, first of all, thank you for this morning. Here in Brazil, it's morning, and so thank you for your attention. And my final message is enjoy it, né? And keep biomechanics.
Great. Inae.
Hello, everyone. Again, thank you for hearing us this morning. And I would like to say that if you are interested, if you're an undergrad, if you're interested in research, you can do it, and you can start as early as you can. But if you are already late in your college, that's not a problem, and you get all the opportunities you can, and the scholarships, the congress, read all projects, make contacts, and that's it.
Great, thank you. Milena?
So first, thank you for hearing us this morning, afternoon, night. I don't know where are you. And I think it's the most important thing to take from these presentations is let curiosity guide you. And if you are interested, and even if you are afraid of talking with some professor, go for it. You will enjoy it. I'm sure it will happen, and it will be a very good experience. I think it creates a lot of opportunities and a lot of connections. And I was afraid a lot of times to talk with someone, or to even to speak here in English. I was very nervous about this, and
You did great.
yes, and it was very cool to be here with you this morning. And it's about that. It's about the opportunity and the experience that you have. And even if you don't like the research area, you will have this great experience in the work field too.
Great. Well, my final question is enjoy and work for diversity and equity in your groups, because if you are doing undergrad and it's bad, sometimes it's because it's not diverse and equity as we expect. So let's fight for this all together. And Jose, I leave for you to say goodbye for everyone and end the session.
Well, in my opinion, from the professor's perspective, it's a good way to have an impact in our students and to improve them professionally. Thank you very much. I hope that you enjoy the session. For me, I enjoy a lot, and see you in the next time.
Okay, bye-bye. thank you again for our sponsors, the LCs, Qualities, Vicon, and Simimotion, and ISBS for organizing. Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.